Hello, welcome to the Free Will, Science, and Religion podcast. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with Jamie Soden, George Ortega, David Joseph, Trick Slattery, and Brad Stansell. And we're going to talk about some of the things that will change as the world understands that free will is an illusion. We don't have a free will. We're not the first cause of anything we think, say, feel, or do. One of the implications, and this is one that I realized recently, is that nobody truly owns the copyright. I know legally people own the copyright or patent on certain ideas, but they didn't self-create the ideas. And this is an interesting thought because the whole concept of ownership, do you own your house? Do you own the copyright? Do you own your pets? So I want to open up the conversation on ownership, and we could get into all that means if it means anything. What do you guys think?
Okay,
Yeah, go on.
I think this, basically ownership of copyright again, it's kind of like compensation for effort. In other words, like we have to recognize, like in our criminal justice system, we have to reward and punish. We have to like threaten punishment and all. So like in terms of like somebody writes a book, somebody, does something or a trademark, a patent, somebody works on something, and we have to, I think, maintain some level of incentive, because we're hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, because we're motivated by reward and punishment. What
Yeah.
happened to Trick?
Oh, he lost connection. I tried calling him a couple of times, but it didn't work.
Okay. So, Brad, what's your take on this?
I think in an ideal world, we would have a better system of, I don't want to say information ownership. I would say information exchange. Definitely, I can totally understand where Chandler's come from. It's definitely a problem that needs to be addressed, especially with the modern age of instant sharing of information. I mean, somebody can go into a movie theater, they can whip out their phone and broadcast it to everybody they know. Um, but there does have to be that incentive to continue to create the things we all know and love. Um, it's a slippery slope, definitely. But there needs to be some equilibrium between the creators and the audience. I don't know if that works.
Oh, but how do we? We're still trying to get Trick on. Back on. How does that work though? How do we? How do we decide, for example, like, for example, with a copyright? I think right now a copyright lasts for what, 75 years or so? I mean, do we make it last less time? What would be the new parameters?
And I'm not a lawyer in this field per se, but I mean I think especially with the faster and faster information sharing and faster creation of uh, media and whatnot, uh, I think maybe 25 years might be a better number than 75 years to especially things that help everybody. Uh, Patents on medical equipment, patents on drugs, patents on I don't know, just think information that would help everybody. I don't. I have such a distaste for pharmaceutical companies and the patents they own on drugs and equipment and these things that could save lives if people could just afford them. I don't want to get started because I'll just go off on a rant on that.
Yeah, but I know how you feel about that, Brad. Because if there's something that will save lives and will help people, then nobody should put like a restriction on it to keep people from getting something helpful. So yeah, and I'd have to say a lot of the reason why we're doing this podcast and why we give so much of the things we write away for free is because this whole no free will topic we know will help people. So that's why we're promoting it the best we can, and
Hmm.
we're not putting real restrictions on it.
And definitely a good thing because I mean because it's the open. I don't want to say open source, but it's open exchange of ideas and technology in a civil fashion. Um, I, I, I definitely want to say that if somebody creates something of value, they should be able to profit off of it. But so they're encouraged to create more. I mean, musicians, directors, movie screenwriters, they should definitely be able to profit off of it. But also, I mean, if it's something that's critical to the survival of society, not just our entertainment, but it should definitely, those type of things I think should have even a shorter span of patent, I guess, viability, maybe 5 years, if that. I take a very expensive drug right now, and if it weren't for my insurance company, and I mean, just think about insurance. I mean, there's a whole industry built on enabling people to pay for these overly expensive things that they shouldn't really have to pay the full amount for. Like I said, I'll just go crazy if we talk about that
All right. So, but I think
the
what
entire
we're
time.
agreed on, but I think what we seem to be agreed on is that yes, some incentive is necessary because we're hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. But I think what we're agreeing on is that there has to be a limit. In other words, like like we'll base compensation, whether it's copyright or income on stuff, on what's necessary to get us to do these kinds of jobs. Some kinds of jobs, like being a doctor, might require more compensation than others. But basically, that would at least eliminate the exorbitant, the unnecessarily exorbitant salaries and profits.
Exactly, and like I said, it's a balancing act between unfairness, basically, and incentive that we have to play to for this free will belief, lack of free will belief.
All right,
But,
Brad. Now, go ahead, Trick.
Oh, so I'm sorry. I kind of just I lost connection with you guys. So you guys were talking about ownership rights. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I brought that idea up because I think this may change, perhaps, how we think of copyrights and ownership. Does anybody really own information when nobody created anything? Nobody chose anything, you know? It,
Right. So
But
basically, we grant ownership rights for the incentive that they provide, but at the same time, we have to recognize that it's not really an inherent ownership, and that's I think what people don't understand is they think that ownership rights are kind of inherent. It's something that they just inherently have within them. That
yeah.
if they earn something, they have rights to that something inherent in that process of earning it. But they don't understand that they had to earn it based on their causality, and somebody else couldn't have earned it if they wanted it. So it's a catch-22 there.
Right, and this goes back to, let's say, primitive society. Like, you're like in a tribe, and let's say you make this great bowl out of wood or a rock or something, right? And you spent like hours crafting it and chiseling it away, however you did it. And so, like, basically, you kind of want ownership, right? And, sure, it wasn't up to you, but it was the result of your efforts. So we want to maintain some of that because, again, that's very motivational.
Right. It keeps the productivity, basically. So.
But I think more what Chandler was talking about is going back to George's analogy. It's more of the process of creating that bowl. I mean, you can keep the bowl as long as you want, but it's not going to benefit you. I mean, consider this metaphor. Think of the person that creates these things, like a movie. I like video games a lot. A video game. Think of them more as an organism. Now, they would have, and I don't want to put it like this, they would have output, but they also have to have that kind of some amount of input in order to keep the organism viable, to keep it wanting to create wanting to do the things that we all know and love. Um, there does have to be some kind of compensation. I don't think it should be as extreme as a lot of these things are, like billions of dollars for a movie, billions of dollars to actors to star in movies. I don't know, but just think of them as organizations, and they're more of a filter for the knowledge that is out there. They organize it, they consolidate it into a form that we like and enjoy, but they also have to have some motivation to continue to I not I guess not motivation, but sustenance to keep them alive and wanting to create that stuff. I mean, I don't know if that's a good metaphor or not, but it, it's more
Well,
of an organism
yeah,
than it
well,
is a
yeah.
just.
I think I know
So,
what
so
you
I think
mean,
of
Brad. I know what you mean, though. Yeah, there has to be an incentive. There has to be an input to keep the organism going like that. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
so I think on the creative front, like on making movies or art or things like that, a lot of people would do it even if they didn't have the monetary incentive. The problem is
But
they have to be
not
able to support themselves. So if they don't have the able if they don't have the money to be able to function, then they don't have, they're not able to actually do that stuff. So that's the problem. It takes money to make a movie. It takes a lot of money to make a movie. So you have to have that money. So, but
precisely, and that's the fine line we have to balance on. Um, you have to. I mean, I can study coding and I can make a video game if I wanted to,
right.
but if there's nothing to come from that, there's the I need motivation to if I want to make it better or make another one or uh, take my camera and go film something. If no one's gonna buy it, everyone's gonna tell me it's crap, and I'm probably not going to want to continue to do it. It's an organism. You need to be fed in order to go out the rear end.
Actually,
Um,
there's a lot of research on this. It's intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. They've done experiments when people do what they do, let's say for a job or whatever, because they want to do it, not because they're getting paid, whatever. They're going to enjoy what they're doing much more. And I would hope they're going to do it better. So like just as a way of structuring society. So, because like before my free will show, I did a show for about 3 years on happiness. And like one of the myths is like most people think, well, yeah, if I have a lot more money, I'm going to be a lot happier. And that's just not the case. So basically, we're just like programmed, conditioned to chase, to chase this compensation. Whereas like when you guys are talking about just like doing things because you want to do them, that's just so much healthier. That's better for everyone.
See, you
And I
see them
think
as separate, but I look at them as one and the same. You say I do it for money or I do it for happiness. Those are kind of the same form of sustenance. Um, I can do it for money if I want it to sustain me, if I want it to buy groceries or whatever, or I can do it for happiness to just lift my mood or whatever. It's kind of the same kind of motivation there, because I mean, if I'm bored, I'm depressed, I can paint a picture. Even if I don't sell it, I can paint a picture if it makes me happy, and then I'm more motivated to go out and be a productive member of society rather than kill myself.
Right.
It's an extreme example, but you can do it to just keep yourself happy,
a lot of people
whether
do
it's chemical or whatever. Whatever. I don't know,
a lot of people
but
do jobs that they don't want to do, that they hate, just to make the money though. So
yeah.
it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah, it's definitely a catch-22, but you don't have to do something to make money. But if there is that coming, there is that pleasure from it, or It could be a logistical thing to buy groceries, buy
Right.
the
I
things
think
you need to survive. Otherwise, you're going to die and you won't be able to
Yeah. Well, I
paint
think
anymore.
the basic necessities is one area where I think we need to basically give people, even if they didn't do any work whatsoever, the basic necessities of life. So basically, we have to distribute wealth to that end, at the very least, in my opinion. I think there's been experiments that show that they've actually did that for I forgot, like a group or tribe or something like that, where they gave them their basic necessities to live on. And when they did that, they noticed an actual increase in productivity because they had those necessities. Um, and in creativity and all these different areas increased because people weren't just doing what they needed to survive. They were doing things that they wanted to do. They were doing things that that allowed their creativity to go through. So um, I think that's something we have to take into account as well.
Right, and to pull it back to the free will theme, basically, I think, a lot of people wouldn't want to institute something like that, even if it did make sense, because of the free will belief, because they believe that, well, like, why should everyone get the same when, let's say, some people are doing things better and all?
Right.
This, yeah. David,
But
Jamie,
they just,
what,
sorry, go ahead.
David, what's your take on this so far?
I've been listening. I could actually say quite a bit on this. Yeah, I mean, it all depends how you're describing incentive and rewards, I guess. I mean, what Brad was saying about food and like happiness. I think there's differences between like wants and needs, basically. So you can have wants or desires with regards to wanting to have praise for something that you've done, and on the other hand, you can have like a need for food and life-sustaining goods and services. But I mean, it all kind of reminds me of a story that Alfie Cohen used to tell in his lectures. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's like he's basically just like an author and lecturer. And the story he tells, which I'm about to completely fluff up, it's about a group of kids who make fun of this old man after school, and they go to his house and they shout and they throw stones. And one day the old man comes out. He goes, "You're doing a good job. I'd like you to come back tomorrow. And if you come back tomorrow, and if you shout at me, if you throw a few stones, I'll pay you each $5." So they all come back the next day, and they throw stones. They shout at him. So he comes out. He pays them each $5. He says, "You've done a good job. Tomorrow, I'd like you to come back, but I can only pay you $2." They come back the next day. He pays them out $2, and they do the shouting and the throwing. And finally, they come back the next day, and he says, "I'm sorry, but I can only pay you 50 cents." And they said, "Well, that's not enough for us." And they never come back again. So what he's done there is he buys off their intrinsic motivation, which is kind of what we do when we give people financial rewards. And so I'm kind of iffy about the idea of punishment and rewards because of that, because of that reason. So I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that punishment and rewards is the way to go.
Well, David, yeah, I think it's like the same with the criminal justice system. I think like we have to recognize that as human organisms, our basic motivation is seeking pleasure and avoid pain. But you're right. I think like to the extent that reward and punishment are minimized, external, extrinsic reward and punishment, yes, I think we'd all be much healthier and happier.
Right. But unfortunately, we live in a system where those kind of extrinsic rewards are kind of pushed on us. So that's the kind of uphill battle that we're against, I think.
Well, going back to the I don't know. I guess it would be kind of getting everybody to do what they were meant to do. I guess what they enjoy doing for a living. That would be a great system. That would be awesome. But I sincerely doubt there are enough people for, especially the population in the world, that would want to shovel, forgive my French, shovel shit for a living. I mean, there are always those menial type of things that no one wants to do,
Sure.
but they still need to be done. No one wants to. I like to think that no one wants to kill anybody else for a living, but there are people in the military, and we need those people to do those things. But I don't think we need to. I don't think you can really abandon the desire and punishment. I guess structure that we built, because essentially that's how we've evolved. That's how we've come to be the dominant species on the planet. We know what's good for us, and we learned what's bad for us. And that's how we've come to be. That's how we've essentially survived, really. I mean, we know we shouldn't jump out the window, so we don't. We've learned that over time, and it's really cost benefit, and we know the cost and we know the benefits. So, I mean, and some of us don't get the benefits we need to continue to continue to live. Some of us have too many costs, so we don't live that way.
The problem is for those particular jobs, for example, the shoveling of manure or whatever, those are the jobs that tend to not pay well. Those are the jobs that tend to look for people that aren't educated enough to make money. So they don't pay them what they really should be paying them. And that's the other problem with
what we really need to be doing is we need to be paying people more for shoveling horse shit.
or sharing it. How about if like you work, as an accountant for like 5 hours a day, and for 1 hour you work on, street cleaning or whatever. Just like we can all share that kind of stuff, because some of these jobs don't require much training, right? I mean,
yeah, that's a concept that's been thrown around. Actually, I've heard it thrown around a few places over the years, and that instead of like drafting people into the military out of high school, we should have people serve like a mandatory period of just public service, and I don't know, like doing those menial things, like have kids do that mandatory period of public service. I don't know, because nobody wants to do that stuff, but it needs to be done. So I don't know.
There are ideas going around that suggest a different system to the one we have, that have potential solutions to the problems that you're bringing up. I mean, one of those solutions could be automation or mechanization, because I mean, any kind of any repetitive job or movement that a human being can do can be replicated by a machine. And I mean, we see this in manufacturing. And, productivity goes up and the jobs in that sector go down. It's been happening. I mean, if you look at the farming industry, for example, the automation in the farming industry, it's made it more productive, but it's also greatly reduced the number of employees in that sector. So,
oh, then you're going for the eventual robot apocalypse.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, guys, this is really interesting because everybody has a different idea, really, of what they want society to look like. But I think we can all agree that there's some things that have to change along with our understanding that nobody's more deserving of anybody else. And so I kind of like the idea that each person has to share somewhat in certain jobs, to more equalize everything a little bit,
Yeah, and there's also that degree of you won't I guess heckle the garbage collector so much. If you had to do that for a couple of years, you would empathize more. We'd be more understanding society if we all had to do that crap job for a couple of years.
And how about arrogance? I mean, guys, like we just did an episode on this. We are leading the world to a fundamentally new consciousness. It is a bigger thing, than Einstein and all those guys, but we recognize that it's not up to us. We recognize that it's not up to us in any fundamental way. So basically, like, there's a lot of, Brad, what you're talking about, some people will look down on others based on their perception that somehow they're better and this betterness is somehow up to them and all. So, like, hopefully as we overcome the free will belief, we'll lose that. We'll lose that arrogance. We'll see it'll create much more of an equal. We'll see each other all as equals more.
Yeah.
And if we bring this, oh, go ahead, Chandler.
Yeah, it brings us more to that understanding that we are all connected. We are all part of one universe. And I think that unity is something that you gain once you realize that you are not something separate from everything else, that you don't have a free will that's independent of reality.
And
Very
if
Buddhist.
You
If
are
we bring
not
this back-
special. You are not a unique snowflake.
if we bring this back to the topic of ownership, I think what we can just recognize is that what people own is a mechanism, is a not a mechanism, is a product of causal luck, basically. So we're saying that we're giving ownership rights for incentive reasons, but it's really just causal luck that gives people these things that they think they own, but it's not really an inherent ownership. It's just something that they got lucky to get, basically.
Luck implies chance, and chance implies,
They had the
not
variables.
disorder,
They
I
had the
guess.
yeah, they had the education. They had the being born to where they were born. They had all these different factors. They had the genetics. They had to be able to do what they did. They had the pretty much the environment that allowed them to thrive. The education, I already said. So they had all these causal luck factors that led to their ownership.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, but it goes into like the Bill Gates story. I mean, like, he was like 15 years old. He was one of the only people in the world that had access, pretty much unlimited access to a computer where you could program.
Mhm.
So absolutely, circumstances.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are always going to be circumstances, but I mean, is it really causal luck? Would you say? I mean, did your parents just by chance decide to have you? Did your parents just by chance decide to have them? Did they decide to move? There, I'd like.
Causality led them to do it.
Right, it's not chance, Brad. No,
Yeah,
look,
but
the way we're using
it's not random. It's not luck. There's no luck there. It's determined.
Luck doesn't mean random. It just means causal. I said causal luck. It just means that you were lucky enough to have the causal factors that led to your position. It doesn't mean that there was something that was spontaneous or anything like that.
Yeah, because here's the deal. Like,
that's a good point.
Trick is introducing a new term, causal luck. Because when you hear the words luck or chance, you think of something random, like for no reason or something. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you're lucky in the sense that it wasn't really up to you, that life actually is a game of chutes and ladders, in a sense. You know what I mean? Because it's out of your control. It's not that it happened because you did it, but it happened by prior causes before you even existed that led you to be who you are, and that even what you decide was up to things before you. So yeah, it's a causal luck. It's not chance. It's not random.
And we need to do shows on this because, right, there is a popular misconception about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it causes a confusion with evolution too, because they're like, "You mean we just evolved by chance or randomly?" And I'm like, "That's a total misunderstanding."
We
Chandler,
also
we got
need to
about
have
30.
that.
What?
I'm sorry.
No,
We
we got
also
about
need
30 seconds. Go ahead, Brad.
We also need to have that understanding that being a part of the system as a whole, we can never hope to understand it as a whole. So, I mean, you also have to acknowledge that we are a subsection of something greater than ourselves. So we can, I mean, being a part of the system, you can't understand the system.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, 96% of reality is this dark energy, this dark matter. We have no idea what it is. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you say you wanted me to wrap it up, George?
Yeah, it's about 30 minutes, right? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, you've been listening to the Free Will Science and Religion podcast with Chandler Klebs, Jamie Soden, George Ortega, David Joseph, Trick Slattery, and Brad Stansell. And we've talked about such a variety of topics. It kind of gets moved from one thing to another because it's all interconnected. So that's part of why this is the biggest thing ever, because things will change. We just can't fully know all the ways the world will change as they understand they don't have a free will. But we'll keep exploring this. So bye for now.